City Council meeting to order. I would like to invite the Mark to lead us for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would ask our city clerk for roll call, please.
Councilmember Agramonte? Here. Councilmember Felder?
Here.
Councilmember Lowe?
Here.
Vice Mayor Barnett?
Here.
Mayor Ding?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Today we do have a closed session meeting at 5 o'clock. At this time, we don't have any item to share with the public. Next, I would like to approve today's agenda. If any comments or just want to approve the agenda.
I move to approve.
Was there a change? I'm sorry,
Was
Mr. Mayor. Was there a change that you guys wanted to make to the agenda before you
Mhm.
gave that approval?
Yeah.
There's, Mr. Mayor, at this point, the question is, the change is in the consent calendar, so
That's okay.
you want to do that at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, under the...
If it's a removal of an item.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove item 4.4.
All right.
For a subsequent meeting, but remove it for tonight.
All right, that's great. So then we have the same move, and who second?
I'll second.
That's a motion as amended.
Yeah,
Yes, it
motion
is a
has-
motion as amended.
Thank you, Councilmember Felder.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Aye.
Councilmember Felder?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe? Vice Mayor Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Ding?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. The next item number 1, comments from the public. These items and allowing the public to make the comments to address what are you concerned. Please keep your comments 3 minutes or less, starting with your last name, how to spell it. Thank you. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Peter Fitzgerald, and the last name is Fitzgerald. Thank you for this opportunity to provide comments again on the traffic safety issues at East Napa Street and 5th Street. As I said, I'm Peter Fitzgerald, and I live at 483 East Napa Street, which is right at this intersection. In March, as I shared with you previously, my dog Rusty was struck and killed by a car that was speeding at this intersection. His death is sadly a tragic reminder of what is a long-standing traffic safety issue here. The streets are not safe for pets, pedestrians, or drivers. In fact, the collision that killed Rusty is one of 4 collisions with pets in the area. There have also been vehicle-on-vehicle collisions and a vehicle-on-utility pole collision. I commented at the Council's June meeting on the recently completed traffic studies findings. These findings only addressed whether or not to place an always stop sign at the intersection. At that meeting, council members expressed support for stop signs, but noted that the city managers were not in support of it at that time and asked us to go away and come up with consensus recommendations. So I'm here tonight, even though this item is not on your agenda, to highlight the urgency of acting and share with you our consensus recommendations, copies of which have been distributed to you this evening and copies of which were sent to you via email earlier this week. There are 16 of us who live at this intersection who have developed and endorsed these recommendations. The recommendations include a variety of measures such as advisory signs, visual narrowing of the traffic lanes, and I think most importantly, physical features that will physically slow traffic. As a group, we are not confident that signs alone, especially in the absence of stop signs, are going to effectively slow traffic. I do want to acknowledge some recent actions by Mike Berger to place a sign in the median right near the crosswalk that advises drivers to slow down. We We think that is helpful. There have also been some small bumps placed in the median to alert drivers when they're crossing over the median. However, I will share with you, just today I was walking my dogs and stood at that crosswalk with the advisory sign, and 2 cars raced right by me, right through the crosswalk. So I don't think the advisory signs are going to be enough. I'm not going to go through the recommendations in detail here. We really do hope we'll have the chance to talk about them with you further and with the City Council. Mostly what I want to do is highlight the aim that guided our formulation of these recommendations. Our aim is to reduce the number of cars going up and down East Napa Street at a speed that is 5 miles or more over the speed limit. The speed limit is 25 miles an hour. In the traffic study, there were 402 cars headed east alone, going 31 miles an hour, and there were 409 cars headed west, going 35 miles an hour. I see my time is getting short. This is not acceptable. This is not safe. I just would say, too, if those numbers are hard to imagine, I did the math, that's 34 cars an hour going at those speeds, a car every other minute going at those speeds.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Cornwall, Cornwall. My comment is about something that's on the consent calendar. Can I make that here, or can I ask you to take it off the consent calendar? So I
Yeah,
could
we can
make a
take it
comment?
off.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Which item? The first one. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Claudia Raniker, Rannikar, 300 2nd Street East. Okay, I'm speaking about the parklets. So, in order to help during the pandemic...
Excuse me.
What?
And we will discuss in the detail for the parklets.
Oh, can I
For
s-
our regular and
Oh,
the meeting.
can I do this or not?
No, not, because this is in the public comments.
Oh.
For those are the comments.
Oh.
Not showing on this agenda. But the
Oh.
parklets, yes, this is
right.
hiding that number.
So
You
I
can-
should have come last time.
No. Yeah, later.
Oh,
Maybe
later.
Later in the meeting.
30 minutes
Do the
later.
whole thing?
When we go through this
Okay.
night. Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Thank
do
you.
that. I can wait.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right. Any other than the public comment? If now, I would like to close the public comments. Let's move to meeting agenda number 2, meeting dedication. None for today. Let's move to agenda number 3, presentation. Agenda number 3.1, proclamation in honor of Women's Equality Day, August 26, 2022.
Good evening, Mayor Dane, Council. This is the third time, I think I'm going to do this. This is the third year, not consistently here, obviously, that I have appeared before on behalf of the Commission on the Status of Women, this council asking for this proclamation. This proclamation process goes on nationally. It's really an attempt to raise interest and visibility of inequality that women workers suffer in this country. I hope each year to come in with really good news, you know, that we've made a reduction in the difference between the earnings of men and women working for the same hours, or a reduction in the circumstances associated with women in employment. And unfortunately, this year, as with last year, I've not been able to do this. And this year, it's even more important because women have suffered greatly during COVID, as we all know. And women are earning the least amount of money, had the biggest brunt of COVID and the limitations on employment and lost jobs, and the families are still suffering. So maybe next year, when I come here and ask for this proclamation again in the support of the city, I will have better news. Right now, my news is pay attention, support women, and let's all fight together for equal employment, and in this case, a little bit of extra for women who've suffered during COVID.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's kind of a big honor for the City Council to present this proclamation. In honor of Women Equality Day, August 26, 2022, whereas almost 50 years ago, in 1976, the Sonoma County Board of the Supervisors established one of finance commissions on the status of the woman in the state of California, with the goal of promoting equal rights and opportunities that enhance the quality of the life for all women and girls, and addressing issues of discrimination and prejudice that negatively affected women in Sonoma, California. And whereas women now constitute nearly 50% of our workforce, the majority of the students in our colleges and graduate schools, and increasing the number of the primary breadwinners for the families. And whereas women workers in Sonoma County disproportionately in the lowest paying the job and suffering the higher rates of unemployment during the pandemic, and only now beginning to return to the workforce with more jobs offering a livable wage. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the city of the Sonoma proclaim August 26, 2022 as a Women's Equality Day. Celebrate essential role of the woman in the well-being and economic growth of the Sonoma County, and recommending to realizing the greater equality in the city of the Sonoma in all area of employment and access to opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you.
All right, let's move to the next presentation. 3.2, presentation recognizing Toby Ford Monroe, Mason Michaelides, and Nate Jordan for their heroic efforts in saving the life of the Mikey Sobieski. Please share your story with us. Come to the podium. Yeah. Either of you, just say a few words to our the local. I know that you traveled a lot, spread the words, but never enough for your heroes and the speech.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Oh, tell him what happened. Okay, my friend Mikey collapsed on the basketball court. He went into cardiac arrest. We rushed over. My friend Toby called 911 while I started compressions, and my friend Nate ran and grabbed the AED. Then we did compressions and shocks until the paramedics arrived, and then he was airlifted to Santa Rosa. He's looking good today.
That's great. Thank you. We are so proud. For that purpose, we present a certificate for all of you. I'm going to sign right now before you. Could I give it to Toby? Yes. This is Nate. We can send it over. Yes, Toby. Yes, sir, Toby. Yeah. We put you. You're gonna do it? Okay, go for it.
You own it.
That was great.
I'm not paying for that pay-per-view on Saturday. Yes.
You already went to the Sacramento. Appreciate that. Thank you for coming. Not overwhelming, you're not really, yeah. Oh, sure, yeah, we got an, please come here, we have a.
Trying to hurt everybody, you're good. Oh, okay, yeah. Can you, can I get one with that, just the boys and the mayor after this?
Yeah.
You can help me?
They get so tall.
Thank you again. You're so proud. Oh, sure.
Oh, just with the mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Agenda number 3.3, presentation recognizing the Bob and Christy Brindley and the Just One Mic and the Foundation for their contributions to the community with the installation of a AED. Save the station at the Sonoma Valley High School. Christy and Bob, we met. Oh yes, could you please, yes. We met at the school. Yeah, could you say something? Yeah.
What would you like from us? Just a word about the foundation?
Yes.
Okay. So the Just One Mic Foundation was formed in 2017 after we lost our youngest son, Michael, at the age of 16. In 2016, he also was playing basketball and went into sudden cardiac arrest. So our goal is to raise awareness and increase survival rates for youth and young adults from sudden cardiac arrest, which happens far more than any of us realize. And we were involved with an event just about a year ago with some Sonoma Valley Education Foundation donors who were gathered. And we shared our story. We announced that we were going to donate one full AED save station. And we had some amazing individuals who stepped up and donated that night that increased this donation to 4. So the gift has been the outdoor tower, 24/7 accessibility to an AED that was on the basketball courts where these boys were playing that night. The same kind of gift is inside the sports complex by the football field. There is one, I just saw the picture today. It's been mounted on the wall outdoor at the pool, the new pool that'll open in October. And we added an additional one inside the high school. And we've also committed to 8 AEDs for the Boys and Girls Club here in Sonoma.
Meet again.
Yeah.
August 27th.
Right. There's a dedication, I'll just add that, on Saturday, August 27th at 11 a.m. at the basketball court AED Safe Station. There'll be a dedication officially of this gift, and we just hope as many people from our community will be there, and so we can just continue to raise awareness, and we can all be ready like these guys, because what they did was amazing, and we all need to be ready if something like that happened, just like them. So please join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, everyone. Let's move to agenda number 3.4, introduction of the new city staff. Sue? Sue?
Oh, actually, Liz Garcia is going to introduce our new accounting
Okay, good.
technician.
Hello, thank you. I want to introduce Alicia Formato, who joined the city of Sonoma on August 8th as our new accounting technician. Alicia comes to us with a wealth of experience. Most recently, she owned her own business for 3 years. Prior to that, she worked for 3.5 years at the Valley of the Moon Water District. During her tenure at the Valley of the Moon Water District, she worked in the utility billing, customer service, starting and stopping water service, and processed accounts receivable. Prior to working with the Valley of the Moon Water District, Alicia was an office coordinator for Well Design, where she provided administrative support to the management team. She also did accounts receivable, accounts payable, and payroll. We are so excited to have Alicia on our finance team, and she's already proved to be a great addition to our team. So.
I just wanted to say thank you to Kathy, Jenny, and Liz for giving me the opportunity to be part of the City of Sonoma team. So thank you guys.
Thank you, and welcome. Always exciting when we see the new blood and join us and serve our community. Thank you again. Let's move to agenda number 4. Consent calendar. And all items, actually, we already put it out. And number 4.4 already. Right.
Yeah.
We needed to.
Well, so Caitlin wanted us to pull 4.1.
4.1?
Sorry,
Okay.
4.2.
Oh, 4.2, yes, 4.2. And 4.2 and 4.4 we'd like to put out. Any other items we'd like to put out?
I believe 4.4 has been removed from the agenda. It's not being pulled, it's simply tabled.
Oh, okay. Yes, this is just removed.
Correct.
And 4.2 we want to put out, and we will discuss in detail in this meeting.
After the consent calendar is approved.
All right. Who want to move?
I'll move the consent calendar with the, except for 4.2.
Is there any, you going to take public comment on the consent calendar as amended?
Right now, I would like to open the public, if any in the public comments. How about in the Zoom meeting, if any?
No one's raising their hand.
All right, thank you. So right now, I close the public comments. We like to move.
Yes, I move the consent calendar except for item 4.2.
The second?
And just to verify, 4.4 was already removed.
It's removed.
Okay.
Removed.
Okay. Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agramonte? Aye. Councilmember Felder?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Dean?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Let's move to agenda number 5, public hearing.
You need to
Oh,
do
4.2.
4.2.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's go to 4.2. Approve the city council responses to Sonoma County Civil Grand Jury 2021 through the 2022 for the following reports. Number 1, affordable housing, monitoring and compliance. Number 2, affordable housing, past, present, and the future. And number 3, what happens when the grand jury makes recommendations? I would like to invite our Public Works Director and introduce it as a background, please. Mike.
David Storr's on Zoom, and he's.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's
he's
good.
good.
All right.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. David here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, the civil grand jury for 21-22 provided the city of Sonoma with 3 reports, as you've just outlined. 2 of them are titled with respect to affordable housing. The 3rd report is a report that was presented as it's a follow-up report for follow-up action reporting from a prior civil grand jury. And that is the one that Public Works Director Mike Berger and I worked on with specific responses or to the recommendations, only recommendations on this particular one, relative to water during an emergency situation for the Sonoma Development Center. So those are in your packet. The first 2 items that you called out, Mr. Mayor, deal with affordable housing in 2 components. Number 1 are findings and recommendations or monitoring and compliance of the affordable housing contracts that we enter into when you have inclusionary housing relative to projects that you approve in the city. We have a list of those within our city that we are in the process of working on. And the second report is about affordable housing in general, past, present, and future. And both of those 2 reports relative to affordable housing have their own respective findings, and the civil grand jury has their own recommendations. And in your packet this evening are responses to findings that we agreed with, that we disagreed with for the affordable housing component. But with respect to the three reports, we have provided responses to the monitoring and compliance recommendations, the past, present, and future recommendations, also for the emergency water supply issue for the Sonoma Development Center, and we've done those recommendations too. So there's one piece of process to provide you with tonight, and that is the responses. Each jurisdiction in the county has received these reports, especially the first 2 that I talked about. The 3rd one is unique to us. I believe it did go to other agencies, but not as many as the 2 on affordable housing. They went to all the jurisdictions, and also we've all provided responses, and you're to do that within 90 days upon receipt of these 3 reports, in our case for the city of Sonoma. So that would be September the 12th. You may recall on your at your last meeting, your council changed the meeting date from September the 7th, which would have given us a second opportunity to make changes to the staff report tonight, should there be questions or additions or deletions or changes that your council would wish. But we don't have that opportunity now because they do need to be presented to the grand jury, to the chairman of the grand jury by the 12th. Which we would then have a meeting that evening. So I'm not quite sure how that could work out, or unless we do a special meeting, or perhaps tonight you say, yes, go ahead and submit these to the grand jury with the following changes. So I just wanted to kind of play that out there for you so you could understand a little bit about the process, and I'd be happy to answer or respond to the questions from the public if your council so chooses. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Any comments and the questions from the city council?
No, I'm curious what Ms. Cornwall has to
Yes.
say about it.
All right, let me then open to the public.
Good evening. Caitlin Cornwall, representing Sonoma Valley Collaborative, which, as you know, is a cross-sector coalition of a wide array of organizations in the Sonoma Valley, working on things that none of us can work on alone. And the thing that we're focused on right now is housing affordability. So this wide array of organizations has been learning a lot about the complexities of housing for a few years now, and working with other organizations around the county, because of course housing affordability is a crisis across the whole county. And we have been seeing the kinds of practices and procedures and planning efforts that various cities and the county are doing in relation to housing, especially in relation to the upcoming housing elements, which all the cities and the county have to revise. Those documents, again, they stand for 8 years. It's really a big deal that the housing plans that you approve in the next several months chart a course to a future Sonoma that is more accessible to more people, so that young people, people of color, people like my 14-year-old son can live here and not be priced out. So what we have seen is that your planning commission and your council says regularly that they share that goal, that they want a more inclusive future Sonoma. But what we see when the black and white words start coming out, the policies don't reflect that intent. And so when we, the staff and members of Sonoma Valley Collaborative, saw the findings and recommendations of the grand jury, we were in agreement with them. We agreed with the grand jury that the policies and direction that the city was taking were not going to achieve those stated goals. So it's quite dismaying to see that your planning commission has disputed virtually every finding of the grand jury and stated virtually without question that the regular planned procedures that the city is taking will resolve the issues that the grand jury pointed out. If you maybe had been at some of the planning commission meetings, you too would have seen planning commission members talking, for example, about how not to implement SB 9. For example, the imposition of these new historic districts just makes it pretty much impossible to densify the city. And we will not have housing that regular working people can afford if we cannot increase the feasibility, the economic feasibility of building smaller, denser, taller units. That's the only way to make it happen. So our members would like you to change your approach and your planning commission's approach to the way that's being proceeded with now with the housing element, to listen to best practices from other places, see what's actually been working in other cities, to welcome different kinds of housing in. It can still be compatible with Sonoma's historic character. I live here too. It matters to me too. Things can be attractive, they can be consistent, and still be affordable. So we hope that you will ask your planning commission and staff to take a different approach to make Sonoma more inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Any more public comments? Sure. Yeah.
I know this is crazy. Claudia Raniker, Rannikar, 300 2nd Street East. I'm not so sure we need housing. What we need is our neighborhoods back. I think that we have turned our neighborhoods into lodging annexes where our neighborhoods were for permanent addresses, permanent residence, and now our neighborhoods have become transient for lodging. I think those lines are becoming blurred. We no longer have a neighborhood, and we the line is blurred. And I would think that one of the things that could be done would be to give them an end to that cycle, such and such of a date to end that cycle where lodging is no longer allowed in neighborhoods. We want permanent residents in there. And I was just throwing out as a thought, maybe somebody could get creative with that. So that's all for there.
Thank you, Claudia. Any more comments? Please check the Zoom.
No one's raising their hand at this point, Mayor.
All right. Right now, I want to close the public comments. Any more discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just make a couple of comments.
Sure.
Can you hear me okay again?
Yes, we can hear.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, the Planning Commission is not responsible for these responses to the grand jury. That has been prepared by your staff, and we recommend their approval tonight so that we can send to the grand jury. We certainly agree that affordable housing and housing in general production needs to be increased in California. That is certainly the mandate of the governor. And you will see that if you were to take the opportunity to review our draft housing element, I want to just do a quick plug for, that is available, it's on the city website. We have had to raise the bar with respect to inclusivity and providing for actions, affirmative actions to further fair housing. This housing element cycle is massive when it comes to the volume that we have to include to provide for affirmatively furthering fair housing. So again, to recap, the ability of the Planning Commission to review these was not taken into consideration. This was clearly a very specific response to the grand jury by staff, and the grand jury does have the ability to follow up with our responses should they not be of their liking. So we have specifically targeted the questions that they have asked or the recommendations. We've responded to them, and we welcome an opportunity for the public to participate in updating our housing element that we're currently in that process of doing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make a few comments about this. Thank you, David and Christina and planning staff for responding to this. Again, this grand jury question was this was not about affordable housing in general. It was more about who is monitoring and ensuring compliance with the affordable housing units we already have. And I actually think this report, just reviewing it, I reviewed it over the weekend, just looking at it again now, sort of proves what I think the Planning Commission and me and many on our council have said for a long time, and David and Christina, that Sonoma is, for a town our size, committed to and doing a great job when it comes to affordable housing. Case in point, there's a chart on page 11 here that compares Sonoma to all the different jurisdictions throughout Sonoma County. And most cities, Cloverdale, Cotati, Healdsburg, Rohnert Park, when it comes to monitoring personnel, none dedicated. On-site monitoring, no, or rare. Sonoma, for a city our size, sort of stands out. We have one part-time monitoring personnel, and we have some on-site monitoring. Now, perhaps that could be better, but compared to most cities in Sonoma County, we're doing a good job. Also, when it comes to affordable deed-restricted units throughout Sonoma, we have 389 units currently. You look at a city like Rohnert Park, which is 4 times our size in population, they only have 564, so less than twice ours. You look at, a city like Petaluma, which I believe their population is 6 to 7 times ours. They have 1,200, so 4 times ours. And so, I don't have the exact ratios here, but I think Sonoma is continuing when it comes to affordable housing, going beyond a city of our size. And I think that's also reflected with the recent policies that have come out of our Planning Commission, City Council. For example, we, passed our inclusionary ordinance. We raised that from 20 to 25%. We included new AMI tiers, including extremely low income. We are committed to affordable housing. The historic districts that were mentioned, all those historic districts are within an existing historic overlay, so that's, in my view, irrelevant because the state laws applied to the historic overlay, so we were just focusing on districts within. And then when it comes to SB 9, this council and the Planning Commission, because we care about inclusivity and we care about affordability, we deed restricted all potential SB 9 units because we want people to be able to afford to live here. We had concerns that small units, small backyard units would be snapped up as sort of weekend homes unless we put deed restrictions in them. And so I respect and listen to all the comments from the Sonoma Valley Collaborative, but I think this grand jury report and our policies show that this city and planning commission and city council is committed to affordable housing. And so that's all I'd like to say for now.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just piggyback on that.
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett kind of touched about the affordable housing contracts that we have. Christina has been working with a company by the name of Rice Housing that specifically does this monitoring for us and has a complete program, and she's available tonight if you'd like to ask any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments?
I do
Yes.
have comments, but I can't find, here it is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at page 1. It's affordable housing, past, present, and future. Do it, or the state will do it for you. I think some years ago, Mr. Storer was here, others were here, when I said this is the harbinger of things to come. First of all, the state pulled off the big steal of our redevelopment agency money in 2015. And so, you know, there's no way to make that money up. We possibly would have received maybe around $1 million a year with redevelopment agency, and that would never be a problem then to build affordable housing. And it certainly is now. The other problem is when you have a small city like we are, you know, larger cities get these benefits for building housing near hubs, transportation hubs. Well, our transportation hub might be the bus 32 with maybe 3 people at the corner. We really we lose because we're so small. And I, you know, looked at 5th and 6th cycle, and my bet is that maybe 4th cycle or the 3rd cycle really brought in a lot of affordable housing, because if you look around, the housing that was built when we had the advantage of redevelopment agency funds, I don't think we missed a beat. So it's just a mystery. I'd love to know. If I won that lottery, the big lottery, I wanted to hire a team of people to take a look at what happened to all our money and how the state is flush. I know that Governor Brown, when he was the governor of the state, he helped to do away with the redevelopment agency. And when he was mayor of Oakland, he spent like a drunken sailor. So we don't have that money anymore. I'm not making excuses for the future, but for me, those are my facts. And, you know, I hope that something will change, and maybe there will be a change in bringing back money for cities to be able to build housing for people who really would love to live here and can't afford it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, since we're discussing this, I like everything that everyone has said, but my concern has always been not so much what have we done, and you know, pat ourselves on the back for some of the good things that we've done. It's like, how do we go forward now? Because we don't have property to build like we do, you know, the Altamira apartments, which is a good chunk of the good works that you comment on, Vice Mayor Barnett. So my concern is, what do we do going forward? Have we sort of peaked in terms of our ability to do this? And what we need is sustainable revenue that is dedicated to this. So because we don't have redevelopment, and you know, that has been my focus and why I've talked about, and I'm glad we heard an item from the public regarding our neighborhoods, because there are a lot of people here who have, this is their second home. And in fact, that when people are struggling to find any home at all, there's people that have more than one. And what can we do about that situation in terms of shouldering their fair share of the burden of housing in Sonoma? With regard to SB 9, which I had a lot of comments on when we were doing it, is that even though it's restricted, sometimes, ironically, just building homes and spaces regardless is going to help us. So I don't know in the long term if restricting it is just going to be, stop people from doing it altogether. So I commend what we've done so far. I think that that's right. But I think what we really need to be looking at is how do we do something going forward, because we no longer have the money, we no longer have that big piece of property, and we may be leading the pack right now, but it's like, how do we stay in front? And that's going to be my focus on all of this. So since we were sort of all over the board talking about it, I thought I'd bring that up.
And can I just
Mr. Mayor,
follow
if
up
I
on
could
that?
make it-
Yeah. Can I go,
if I
David?
could just make another quick.
Maybe let David answer question
Okay.
first.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Councilmember Lowe. The city is currently met all of its RENA numbers for this particular cycle, number 5 that we're in. And it's not so much what we've done in the past. What we can clearly show is that the goals and policies of prior councils and the implementation of staff is such that, yes, we've met our RENA number of 137 units in those 4 income categories, but we can do better. We do have some more time in this cycle, number 5, to do more and add more. And as Councilmember Lowe said, it's now how do we make the plan work for the next 8 years? And that's the whole point of the 6th cycle of the housing element, is to make sure that we get the right policies to guide the next 8 years, and how we fund that as well would be a hand-in-glove kind of component of our budgets and the like. The important thing here is that our housing, again, a shameless plug, it's on our website, folks, and it's basically 2 components. Number 1 is a housing plan, which is, I think, just 80 pages long, that talks about the goals and policies and objectives. And then there's several hundred pages of a background report that gives all of the basis data to help support the policies that we prepared. So again, we plan on having a presentation tomorrow night at the Planning Commission by our consultant, and Wendy of our staff will be doing that and shepherding that process. So we invite public participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, and just to follow up on what David said, Council Member Lowe is completely right. You know, I think we have done a good job, but what are we going to do in the future? And to Council Member Agramani's point, redevelopment was taken away, and we did a lot of that great affordable housing development back when we had redevelopment. And so to that point, in terms of looking to the future, you know, a previous council, and with this council's continued support, designated 1% of the TOT to fill up an affordable housing trust fund. I think at the end of this year, we're approaching $1 million, and once we start to build up that fund, I think we'll be able to do more in terms of acquiring property or developing property like the Altamira Apartments. And then when it comes to the neighborhoods, as Councilmember Lowe pointed out, we've restricted Airbnbs, we restricted Picasso, we're looking at vacancy taxes. The city is doing everything we can.
The vacancy taxes, thank you for saying it out
Yes,
loud.
yes, so.
That's great. Yeah, great points and great ideas. Share each other. Yeah, the affordable housing and the housing always, you know, for the everybody. Yeah, for the communities, for the private sectors, for employer, and for even for the visitors, because a lot of visitors came to here and become the residents. And the issue is right now, and how to build up our community, our neighborhood. It's really the issue. And then a minor, you know, small community, 7 units. When I just moved in, we have the 4 owner and the residents. But right now, just only 1 resident over there. The rest of the owner rented it out. That is a really, really, you know, serious issue. I don't think this minor, you know, case is extreme case. You know, we have seen a lot of the local and residents and moved out and become the commercial rental. Any more comments? All right, Dave, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, a resolution approval, or not resolution, excuse me, but just a direction to forward the comments and responses to the grand jury, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And also, possibly in the future, also we can review our an affordable housing the trust fund, the policy. The right now is at 1% of the TOT, possible in the future, if necessary, 1.5 or even a 2%. And we are using the outside of the money, to improve our local housing condition, or possible. Any comments?
I think in order to ask the legal counsel, I think we just need not a motion, maybe there's a motion to approve the consent item before you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I move to approve consent item 4.2.
Second.
Second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett.
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda number 5, public hearing. Today, we don't have any public hearing. Agenda number 6, regular calendar. Agenda number 6.1, discussion, consideration, and a possible direction to number 1, allocate required funding and standing to the developed, resigned and parklet program 2.0. Number 2, determine if developing a revised program should wait until the spring 2023 to evaluate COVID-19 impacts during the upcoming winter. Number 3, require the parklets remaining after October 31st, 2022 to meet ADA requirements and establish the standards for the parklets with the platform. And number 4, explain the scope of the work to include Sonoma Plaza Master Plan presents. I believe this one we'd like to ask Chairing the City Manager Sue Casey. Could you please give us a little bit of background information?
Actually, Christina Tierney is going to give you the background on this.
All right.
She's handing out
Okay.
some. She's handing out a grid for you guys to vote on.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. We're back before the City Council to dig into parklets a little bit deeper. I'm handing out a matrix that we will use later in the evening to go item by item to get the council's direction on the interim improvements. So we can, we'll address those in a moment. But first, just wanted to bring everybody up to speed on the current status of the Sonoma Alfresco program. So as you might remember, the Alfresco program is not just parklets. It includes parklets and tents, which we currently have 12 parklets and 3 tents. The First Street East road closure. There's also improvements on private property, such as Hot Monk, Sausage Emporium, Sunflower, and Sojourn Cellars. We have approved additional sidewalk seating at Taub, Sausage Emporium, Cafe La Haye, and Sunflower Cafe. And there are also dedicated parking spaces for takeout at the Red Grape, Girl in the Fig, and temporarily we had some spaces at Chico's. I'm not sure if those are there still. So our current parklets include Mary's Pizza. B&V has one on the Sonoma Plaza and one on East Spain Street. Sweet Scoops, Plaza Bistro, The Basque, Della Santina, Caddis, Maya, Pangloss, and Oso, and Valley. So we were originally at 50 spaces that were taken up by our parklets. We currently are down to 40. Most recently, the sidewalk extension at Cafe La Haye was removed, so we have a couple spaces back there. So on June 1st, 2022, when we were last before council talking about parklets, the direction was threefold. One, to extend the existing program to April 1st, 2023. A direction to staff to develop a revised Sonoma Alfresco program version 2.0, we're calling it. Terminate the First Street East road closure on October 31st, allowing businesses until October 30th to remove all of the improvements. So those are the 3 directions that from council on June 1st. So since June, staff has been working with business owners one-on-one through calls, meetings, and just trying to get voluntary compliance with a lot of the issues. We have also been researching options for the new program. We have been outreaching to various consultants to help support a new program development, potential options for design guidelines. How should we address the historic plaza with all of these program components, as well as other options for supporting our local businesses downtown. So some of the accomplishments are at Mary's Pizza. We did a test demonstration with a new traffic safety measure that would eliminate the water walls. It was very loud and clear from the ad hoc as well as council and members of the public that there was a strong desire to get rid of the orange water walls. In addition to them being unsightly, there are much better traffic safety options. And big thank you to Mary's Pizza. They were extremely wonderful to work with for our test case. We ordered some black rubber curbs that were installed by the Department of Public Works, as well as some channelizers. And they also performed some repairs on the sidewalls. At Cafe La Haye, at their request, wanted to remove the sidewalk extension that was put in. And that was really put in because of COVID, to ensure that there was 6 feet of passage around the sidewalk diners, and that was no longer needed. And also one of their neighbors was asking for part of the tent to come down. So they willingly took down half of their tent. City staff removed the sidewalk extension, and we got 2 more parking spaces back through that. Maya worked on improving the aesthetics and removing some tripping hazards and improving some ADA compliance. As I mentioned earlier, overall, we've reduced the number of parking spaces dedicated to parklets from 58 to 40. That's a 30% reduction. So this evening, we're hoping to dive a little bit deeper on what we're calling the interim improvements. So as you recall, the program was originally set to expire on October 1st and was extended by council to April 1st. And so we're hoping to get really clear direction, hopefully from the council, on what improvements need to happen immediately, what improvements should happen by October 31st, 2022, and what needs to happen for a parklet to stay until October 31st. And then we will also be looking for direction on components for our new parklets, Alfresco 2.0. So the interim improvements fall into 5 categories. Traffic safety is one of the most important. Obviously, we want to keep everybody safe. We also have issues with tents and heaters, which are largely regulated by state fire code. And we have Trevor here to answer questions and help us navigate some of those issues, as well as the Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. And then we do have ongoing code enforcement complaints with several of our parklets, and so wishing to get global direction from the council on how we should handle those issues moving forward. So traffic safety, the big issue that we have been trying to deal with are the water walls and finding a safe solution for removing them. And aesthetics is part of it, but really there are safer solutions available. So the direction from the ad hoc and recommendation from staff has been to remove the water walls and have them replaced with the black rubber curb stops and channelizers where appropriate. So there are some locations where this is not an ideal solution, and the corner by BNV is a perfect example. There's a fire hydrant there. So that is one location where we would need to come up with something different. And the recommendation from staff is for city would control the procurement process so that they're all standardized and the safety measures are equal for all of the parklets. And they would, once you take some of the parklets use water walls as the sidewalls, so when we take those water walls away, we need alternative measures to keep everybody safe. So the parklets that don't have 3 stable sidewalls would need to improve their safety in that respect. And the proposal is for the businesses to pay for the physical improvements of the curb and the channelizers, and the city would pay to do the installation at no cost. So tents are regulated by California Fire Code. There were concessions made during COVID for airflow. That is no longer the case. Per state fire code, they're allowed for a maximum of 180 days. So all 3 of the parklets on the plaza are far past that 180 days. So we're trying to work with our business owners to find a solution, but again, the issue is regulated by the state. So our current recommendation is to allow the tents until April 1st, consistent with the direction on the parklets. Heaters, similarly, a tough issue regulated by the state. Propane heaters are not allowed under tents or near combustible materials or in a public right-of-way. And all heaters must comply with electric and fire codes. And thank you to Trevor. He put together this flow chart of all of the various options. I'm not going to run through it. I just wanted to help illustrate how challenging it is to find an opportunity for a business to actually use a heater in a parklet in a manner that meets fire code. The Americans with Disabilities Act is a hugely important issue in our community. The goal of the act is to prohibit discrimination against people with disabilities in several areas, including employment, transportation, public accommodations, communications, and access to state and local government programs and services. So because of COVID, we did make some concessions. This photo here, you'll see that the ramp going down to the parklet meets ADA. The road surface does not. So staff's recommendation for the moving forward for the program is that immediately ramps must be in good working condition. Sidewalks must have 5 feet of clearance unless otherwise approved by the building official. Umbrellas must have a minimum clearance of 6 feet 8 inches. Some of the umbrellas that are lower, you can see them popping people in the head as they're walking by, and for visually impaired and other people not paying attention, it's definitely a risk. And staff's recommendation is that no parklets without platforms, meaning a flat surface over the road, be allowed beyond April 1st, 2023. For code enforcement, staff's recommendation is that all improvements must meet the approved encroachment permit conditions, as well as the interim improvements that the council directs this evening. We were moving really fast in the beginning, and there are some discrepancies between what was approved and what is in the field. There's been some, scope creep over time as well. And what we're looking for from the council is direction on the timing of code enforcement action for the outstanding issues and what feels appropriate in that respect. And for the parklets to remain between October 31st and April 1st. As I mentioned, we'll be discussing those interim standards, and that's the standards that we'll be applying universally. So that kind of summarizes the interim improvements. I'm moving on to the efforts that have happened to date on the new Alfresco program, Alfresco 2.0. So before the council this evening is consideration of 2 scopes of work that would implement a revised parklet program. The second option is to determine whether or not it would be in the city's best interest to delay the decision to see the potential impacts of COVID over the winter. Number 3 is to have kind of a scaled down version of the program that relies on our existing parklet standard that was developed by the building department in the beginning of COVID and is still a very good document. Item 4 is to potentially expand the scope of work to take a more holistic view of the downtown plaza and planning and creating outdoor areas. So for option 1, this is really was us trying to take the direction from June and run with it. So we received 2 scopes of work for consideration. These are attachments on the agenda item this evening. So the first scope of work is from M Group. They are a local planning and design firm that has worked on many parklet programs in the Bay Area. And so their proposal is approximately $26,000, and it would be to create a new parklet program. The second proposal is from Page and Turnbull, which is a very reputable historic preservation firm that we use very often. And so what their role would be is to start the process off in the right direction. So they would review our downtown plaza design guidelines and create a framework that M Group would work with. Then M Group would develop the program, and Page and Turnbull would review the draft program for consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards. As we all know, our Sonoma Plaza is very unique in that it is a historic register and has a much higher standard for design and construction than a lot of other locations. So a little bit more challenging for us. So as I mentioned, the M Group proposal is about $26,000. The Page and Turnbull is about $10,000. So collectively, for us to implement this next stage, that's about $36,000. And in addition to that, there is substantial staff time. And just wanted to make sure we're all making decisions based on the whole of the action. As you can see, all of these issues don't just touch one department. Every time we have a parklet discussion, it is the city manager, myself, the planning director, building, fire, public works. And as being a small city and staff, we have to balance all of our competing priorities. So that is option one. Option two is the wait and see approach. So given the volatility of COVID, it might be worth it to wait until early 2023 and reevaluate the needs of the community and the businesses. That would allow staff more time to research alternatives. Some of the downsides are primarily for the businesses that they would not get the certainty that they might want, and it would delay the decision making. Option three would be to utilize our existing standard and to allow the existing parklets to continue, provided they meet ADA and our parklet standards for a platform that meet ADA. And that would allow the businesses an option to continue with a relatively low amount of staff effort. It would be very cost efficient. The downsides are we wouldn't be creating a comprehensive program, and so there might be some potential aesthetic issues, compliance issues down the line. And this is our current parklet standard. I think Wayne developed it. Did he take off? So some of the modifications that would need to be made are removing the water walls, adding the curb stops on. Obviously, we don't need 6 feet of separation for COVID anymore, but it's a pretty detailed document. In fact, many other jurisdictions during COVID, they just copied this with our permission, of course, and it was used for City of Healdsburg, I think San Rafael. In their parklet documents, it had our City of Sonoma logo. So option four is really just, looking at the cost of all these proposals and how much time it is going to take for the number of parklets we have out there. Just raising the question, does it make more sense at this point in time, instead of spending $30,000 in the staff time, do we want to just look bigger picture and allocate more money to this effort and take a more comprehensive look? And this option four also could be done in conjunction with all of the other options. So we could have interim parklet standards as well as doing the master plan process. So I'm shifting gears a little bit. So I'm going back to the interim improvements, and this is where the spreadsheet that's in front of you comes into play. And I think before I dive into this, I'm gonna, Trevor, did you wanna say anything before? Yeah. Does anyone have questions for the fire marshal? I know that's been kind of a controversial issue before we dive into this, or I can do it as we go down the line too. All right, I'll just dive in. So the first issue that we're looking for direction on are the water walls. So staff's recommendation and the ad hoc recommendation had been for the water walls to be removed to improve public safety, and they would be replaced with rubber curbs and channelizers. And so what we are looking for guidance on is, does that need to be done immediately by October 31st, or would that level of investment need to be done by April 1st? And what this is really getting down to is the parklets that do not have platforms. They're the businesses that would be the most affected by this, because in addition to paying for the curb stops, they would also need the sidewalls as well.
Is that a question?
That's a question. That's a question. We're going to go one by one.
I need a point of order here, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I need to know if it's your guidance, Mr. Mayor, that we take all of these items as presented for votes, is what I'm hearing. Maybe I'm mishearing, but it seems to me that we have to first take questions from the council members regarding this presentation, listen to public comment, and then maybe come back for those votes, because I think if we did that now, we would be out of order.
I agree with Councilmember Lowe, and then perhaps maybe even talk about those 4 directions before we even get to this.
Right.
Because, yeah.
So I would like to suggest if you've come to the end of your report and we're ready to sort of focus up on these things, that we take our questions, listen to public comment, and then come back, and then we can go through each.
Yeah, if you'll just allow me 1 minute to wrap up, and then I'll open for questions. So some other program decisions that need to be considered are the cost of developing the program. How are we going to do cost sharing? Is the city prepared to pay for the development of the program? Are we planning on asking the businesses to cover some of those costs? We just started doing some preliminary research, and so currently, if for a special event, for example, if a nonprofit wanted to take over our parking spaces, what the city would charge is $20 a day per space, or that adds up to about $600 per month. The city of Healdsburg is charging $2,400 annually per parklet, plus annual rent. That is $1.50 a square foot. And the little sample table up to the right is from Healdsburg. So a 100 square foot parklet would be $4,200 a year. A 678 square foot parklet would be $14,604 a year.
What, like, for example, let's do the bistro. Do you know how big that parklet is on a square foot?
I don't have square footage, but that's one of the larger ones. So that's 5 parking spaces. So
that could be 15,000.
The parking spaces are, 17 by 9-ish. I'm not very good at math.
Okay, thank you.
Ron can
No,
do
I
math.
was just trying to put it in the context.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. As far as the duration goes, I think that is one of the big issues for the businesses. If they're going to expend this much money, if it's just for a year, or is it for 2 years, that's really important. So Santa Rosa is 12 years with potentially, 12 months with potential annual renewals. Healdsburg is 12 months with possible renewals. So they're going to be reevaluating the program in a year.
I have a question. These kind of the income the city collect will go to the which account?
I think that's all things we would have to decide.
Usually.
Right now, because we have no direction, we're going to the general fund, so, right.
Okay.
Unless council decides otherwise.
Yeah, we are, from a planning perspective, we are bringing forward the parking benefit district. So in the next few months, that would potentially be an option. So that's just really to kind of highlight some of the options. These pictures are of a modular parklet company that's recently come to our knowledge. We don't have all the details, and I thought the pictures were pretty, but we haven't fleshed this out yet. So.
That one on the right doesn't appear to have any water walls or curb stops or anything. It just, there's sort of paint. I mean, do you know why that place can get away with that?
I don't. These are photos sent by the vendor.
Okay.
We haven't had any conversations. These are made out of stainless steel, and what was the terminology? Vehicle tested. So I think they have done some kind of test. We haven't gotten all the information. That's what this is not one of the options tonight because we don't have all the information.
All right, thank you.
So with that, I will open it up for questions.
Mr. Mayor, so code enforcement, how does that work with all of this? Who is doing this? Who's saying this isn't, who's doing it?
So code enforcement is typically on a complaint basis. So if a business or anybody feels like they have an issue anywhere in the city with any of our planning issues, they can turn projects into code enforcement and submit a formal complaint. So we do have several formal complaints that we are working on. Our first line is always to try to get people to willingly comply and to work with our businesses. And so that's what we have been doing to date. So none of the projects that have gotten formal code enforcement complaints submitted have actually been forwarded to the code enforcement process. We've been working on a staff basis.
So there actually is a process?
There is a process. To date, we have been working just at the staff level. And so one of the directions we're looking for tonight is at one point, if these issues are not being resolved willingly, at what point do we get code enforcement involved?
So, and could I ask a question? What do you all feel is timely to respond to issues?
Code enforcement issue. Well, I think, that's the list of interim improvements really outlines all of the concerns that staff has that we'd like to get direction on tonight. So traffic safety, ADA, aesthetics from a very low level, tents and heaters from a fire safety perspective, and then direction on code enforcement.
And I've never seen the rubber curbs.
Yeah, so they're at Mary's. So if you take a look by Mary's, they used to have water walls on the east and west ends, and so we were able to remove those, and the curbs are about 6 inches tall. I think they're a really good option, and our Public Works Director has supported them and feels that they're a much safer option.
Well, I have to go by there. I've never seen them.
That's a good sign, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really supportive of moving forward. I'm with this until I think October. I'm done. Many years ago, I worked at Bechtel, and they, of course, were with the BART. Parsons, Brinkerhoff, Tudor, and Bechtel. They rebuilt all the BART. They did all BART on Market Street. This is what it's like, up and down wood platforms, jumping off curbs, watching out for trucks. I'm done with this, and I really, I personally was asked to support this in the beginning. I was in favor of it, and I think it's really been important. But I live here. I'm the person jumping up and down on these curbs and all of that stuff, and I trust that code enforcement is actually doing the things that you're suggesting, because I think one of the things that I feel personally about is we're here, all of us, just to serve the public. That's it. It seems to be so simple. But I know they've been called K-rails, now they're called something else. But I remember there was a portion of time that they weren't even locked. So you hit one and it'll fly into people. So I know you all have worked so hard to try to make this as the best as possible. I know all of the cities are doing the same, and I just, I just can't do it anymore.
And so if I could just clarify where we are right now. So the council already voted to extend the program
Right.
to April 1st. And so what we're looking for is
I
guidance
didn't know, I
on
thought October.
what do we
Hold
do
on.
between now and April 1st.
Hold, yeah, go ahead.
I would like to have some proof of that vote.
Which city council meeting we made a
It was
decision?
the second meeting in June.
Second meeting in June.
I think that was June 15th.
Let me look at.
While we look that up, are there other questions?
Yeah, keep asking questions. We are gonna find out. Yeah.
Can you talk more about the option 4 about incorporating this into a plaza master plan?
Yeah, if we were going to do that approach, what we would want to do is develop a formal request for proposals and have budget allocated, send the proposals out, and get consulting firms on board who would look at that.
Which would be, and at least the way I envisioned it, a multi-year process, perhaps sidewalk extensions, improvements within the actual plaza park, and so this would be a potential outdoor dining element. Maybe they wouldn't even be parklets; they would just be on larger sidewalks. Would
Potentially.
be incorporated over a
Yeah, so in
a
my
5-year period.
In my experience, park master plans can run between $150,000, $300,000. We would have to do CEQA work. It would be
Yeah, it would not be overnight.
no,
But
no,
it would be the goal. It'd be something
it
to
would
aspire
be
to.
at least a 2 to 5 year process, probably.
Yes.
Do you have any idea from the cost analysis from the other cities as to if any of the businesses closed their parklets because they didn't want to pay, or how that's going? Any sense from them on that?
I don't. Mark, do you have any? Okay. Do we want to open for public comment when we're looking?
Yeah, Rebecca's looking back at me, so-
Yes.
Oh, I thought maybe Sue might be able to answer Councilwoman Lowe's question.
Sorry, I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she was just asking if we have any information from other jurisdictions about businesses not proceeding with parklets due to the fees.
No, we could research that, yeah.
These are all, they're all in their infancy. These were all just approved. For example, I think Healdsburg's or Santa Rosa's, they don't open until January 1st, 2023. So all of the pricing has just been published. They haven't even opened up for their application. So I think it's a little premature to know that information.
Yeah, go ahead.
And do you know, it's interesting, thank you to Councilmember Lowe. We were talking about parking issues
Yeah.
recently, and you, Councilmember Lowe, said, why are we all driving through town to get to parking in the back? Why can't we have a shuttle, maybe from the hotels or other places, which I think is a great idea. I was really gratified to meet Maria from the state parks, because I thought she really has that same commitment that we do, but she just wants us to know what their commitment is and what they use as their guidelines. So I thought, for me personally, that was very valuable. And I, just blindly walking down this road, I'm looking at number 4. Because I just think, and I'm glad, I'm just assuming, because for over a year ago, I assumed it was fun, I was safe. Now there is, because I asked the police, somebody was hurt seriously, actually, at Maya, and I asked the police, were they given a report, and they said no. So I hope that's happening now. I think Garrett actually added that to something, to this, that if you're hurt on that property, I was also told that something would never happen with one of the parklets, that you couldn't back up going east and run into the wall across the street. It did. It knocked out those K-rails. So those things have happened. So I think it's, for me still, I don't know how the council feels, but with these things need to be reported, and we need to make sure that they are.
I think that's one of the appealing factors of these prefab parklets is they are made of steel, very, very firm steel, so they do appear to offer a good degree of protection.
I think right now it's time for me open to public, and Mark has a lot for represents. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. All right.
They want you, Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I want to Mark Bodenhammer with Sonoma Valley Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for hearing me today. I want to start off thanking specifically the ad hoc committee, but also this council and previous councils who've put so much time and energy into this, and this is obviously a big concession, not just from the council, but from the community as well, that's giving up some of the public space and some of their parking spaces to assist businesses. One friendly reminder, COVID is still ongoing. We just heard from the CEO of our local hospital. They actually have more people in the ICU now than they've had in a long time. So whatever is decided, I hope that we have flexibility built in, maybe some off-ramps with regard to changes if there is a notable resurgence. We've all gotten really good at pretending COVID isn't here, but it is still here. One reminder, Chamber does not have an official position on this at all, so we have members on both sides. I have members of the Chamber who are adamant that it is time to take these out, and some who are saying we would like to keep these here and they like seeing them. Couple quick notes just on behalf of the parklet owners from what I have heard. They are willing to invest. They understand that the timing has changed. We created this plan during an emergency, and there was no way, people had no money to pay for, renting a space and no money to build a well thought out parklet. But now everybody understands if we are going to move forward, I think that they are willing to put time and money into creating something that is more appropriate for our historic Plaza District. The one thing that I would ask, just as a general courtesy, is that we don't make any major changes that would incur huge cost to businesses until we have the final plan created. What we don't want to do is have somebody have to make $10,000 worth of changes to the existing parklet, and then a week later we drop information about new parklet standards that could cost $40,000 and they've now wasted 10 when they could have just jumped to the new standard. So hopefully we can just time the changes in a way so that we're being fair to everybody and give people a chance to make a smart decision, and maybe they go right to the final new standards, whatever those may be, rather than doing the interim upgrades. I think that was it. Thank you all very much for your time.
All right, yeah. You haven't used your 3 minutes. I was thinking that you speak the more after the 3 minutes. All right. Yeah, Claudia, your
Okay,
turn.
Claudia Raniker, 300 Second Street East. All that cuteness and all is very overwhelming to me, very overwhelming. I have something to talk about that that all that cuteness covers up, that needs to be brought to your attention. So evidently, some of these businesses didn't have outside seating. So in order to help during the pandemic, some businesses were allowed a privilege to put up temporary outdoor seating, and now the time has come to remove the temporary privilege. However, some of those businesses have grown dependent on that privilege and no longer believe they can survive without the support given to them by government. This is one example why government is not responsible for us, but instead government is responsible to us. Government is responsible to us in that it has a duty to make sure we are independent of government control, free to make the decisions that govern our lives, and to be responsible then for our successes and our failures. Government is responsible to us in that it has a duty to make sure all of us are valued equally without privilege to some. This is the foundation on which this country is founded, and if those principles are not upheld, then government would be run as a good old boys club in a people-pleasing popularity contest, and the art of governing would become completely dysfunctional. That said, please give back to those businesses their right to life and liberty, allowing them complete freedom from government control. Give them back their right to make their own happiness by allowing them freedom to make the decisions that govern their lives and to be responsible for them. And please, give back to all business the right to equality by not giving privilege to some. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
Yes.
Hello. It's been a while since I've been up here. I'm Yvonne Bowers, B-O-W-E-R-S, 392 East Napa Street. I'm speaking on personally, but I'm also the chairperson for the Traffic Safety Committee. So you have a face to the, except Mike. Hi, Mike. I've also sent you guys pictures that I've taken of the parklets. One in particular that I won't name, but I've sent a couple of pictures of that one because there are weeds growing up between the bottom of it. It's very unattractive. I think Mary's is the standout. I think Mary's is the best one. If we're going to have parklets, I think Mary's is the best one. But I'm struggling a little bit with what is our concept of this now? It was like the woman who spoke before me, came out of an emergency, and we needed to give people a place to eat outside, and the whole point was to save the restaurants, not necessarily the wine tasting rooms. I'm just going to throw that out there. But we're past that now. So if we're going to keep the parklets, if we think that is something that goes with the city, then we should incorporate it into the master plan, incorporate it in with the parking plan, and take a good look at what these things should actually be and whether we can really support them, and not just keep them because they were put in place for an emergency, and now we're kind of stuck with them. My personal opinion is that we don't need them anymore. Della Santina has a huge patio. There's a lot. If I were to open a restaurant today on the plaza, would I be able to put a parklet in there? Would the city let me not have a couple of parking spaces so I could put a parklet? I'm not sure that's what would happen if something happened going forward. So I would just like to see us, I like the plans, I liked all the plans that were presented, but I'd like to see us decide what this really should be for us, and then incorporate it into all of our other plans. If it takes a while, it takes a while. But let's just do it right and not just keep, approving them or making them change them or making them, I'm glad the orange walls are gone, but making them change them. Let's do it right. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Ron Wellander, 1149 Neal Court. I'm coming to you wearing kind of many hats, but probably the most significant hat is that of a citizen and as a landscape architect. It's quite clear what the intent was years ago as far as with COVID hit and the impact it was going to have on local businesses, and I applaud the fact that we did not sit back and not do anything, but we jumped forward and offered up what we thought was a measure by which we could counter some of the significant financial impacts that COVID was going to have on particularly the restaurants. I think the intent was good. I applaud that. I was part of that. In fact, I volunteered my time in terms of how to put lipstick on the pig, and I say the pig because the parklets, unfortunately, are kind of lean-to sheds that were put up quickly, and we just cannot deny the fact that we are blessed with a historic plaza that few other communities have. And that's where I struggle with the comparisons that we've been making with other communities. They don't have our historic plaza. And unfortunately, the existing parklets they do compromise the visual setting. I think no one can argue that because they basically look more or less like a lean-to shed. I do not feel guilty at all with the goal of saying enough is enough, it's time, October 31st, we did well, let's move on. Because we have had offered outdoor seating for diners in Sonoma way before COVID. So it's not like we have all of a sudden created something that nobody else had before. We had it. Granted, it was used to supplement and provide a way for businesses to keep customers coming in. But what I'm sensing is we're kicking the can down the road, and I'm very concerned. Now I'm putting on as a landscape architect that happens to live in Sonoma, that we are compromising a historic plaza, and we're extending it, and all of a sudden someone's going to say, well, it's been here for 3 years. Is it not grandfathered in? Isn't it, shouldn't it be what it, I mean, we can't change it. It's the way we have it. And this idea of extending it, again, just suggests this acceptance of permanence. What I'm advocating very passionately for is that we need to look at a comprehensive plan. And what Christina Tierney suggested was, yes, a master plan. But before we go out and we solicit RFPs, we really need to come to grips with what is the program? What are we trying to do? We want to energize and keep our downtown district healthy, active, and that really does come from a need for thoughtful planning. So I am suggesting that we do not hire and spend $26,000 on specs or design guidelines now. I strongly encourage us to take that money and set it aside for what will be an expensive but very valuable exercise of creating an overall master plan. And ultimately, I think that is the key to maintaining a very healthy and viable downtown district. And my light is blinking, so I am leaving.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. Any more public comments? Pat, do you want to say something? All right. All right, let's look at the Zoom.
We do have someone
All right,
on Zoom.
great.
I'm going to bring in
Sure.
Claire Salat. Just give me a second
Great.
here. She is.
Good evening. This is Claire Solat in St. John Bay. We are residents of the city of Sonoma, and we're very excited about the conversation tonight. We strongly support option 4, which is the creation of a master plan. One of the interesting occurrences tonight is that we keep talking about parklets when in fact the agenda item is alfresco dining. I believe that alfresco dining should go way beyond just parklets as they exist, and we need to be looking at the plaza in that context. As many of you know, 2 years ago when I spoke on this issue, I suggested that Sonoma create a conservancy similar to what happens in New York City at Central Park, where 85% of the costs are maintained through voluntary contributions. I think that this council would be wise to start the work on a master plan for the plaza and the surrounding areas that would allow us to utilize the plaza and these areas to the full benefit of the community. That would include looking at all sorts of options for dining, both around and in fact in the plaza itself. For those of you who keep comparing our plaza to other areas, I will remind you that not only New York City, which has a much longer history than Sonoma, and multiple cities throughout Europe all use their plazas as gathering spaces 7 days a week and have public-private partnerships in those plazas where there are cafes, restaurants, social enterprises, all sorts of opportunities. We should be making parking the least important priority as we have this discussion, and safety and opportunity should be the paramount opportunity concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Mayor Ding, we have Joel Hoyt that I'll bring in now.
All right. Joy.
Hello.
Hi, Joy. It's your turn.
Yes, I just want to mention, it seems like this would be a more simple discussion if we consider that West Napa Street, or I'm sorry, West First Street, East First Street, and Napa Street be automobile free. And that we should really be considering making the plaza free of automobile traffic. And that I think that this would be a real, it would make the parklet issue go away. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
We have Claire Salat with her hand raised again, but she has already spoke, so
Oh,
I'm not sure why she hasn't raised it.
that means in the first, Claire. Oh. Claire just to speak. Joe, second.
I'm just asking her if she's requesting to speak again.
Mm-hmm.
Could be somebody else using her same
That's what I'm,
log on.
that's what I'm finding out right now.
Basically, today, we got a lot of the inputs. That's great. But I haven't seen many restaurant owners that came today, yeah, compared with the last time.
She's not responding.
All right, if like this way, yeah, we would like to close our public comment, and we need to discuss it more, and to try to, make the decision for those kind of four options, which one is the best way for us right now, and also for in a long term as well.
So what do we do? Sorry, what do
We discussed it more, and then also we needed to choose, because, and here we have the four options presented. we probably choose, because looks like number 4, that is it's kind of the, comprehensive, the B, right, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the 4 options, I'm trying to pull up the agenda again here. What I would definitely support is option 4, for sure. A master plan for the plaza is something I think we've needed for a long time, and I'm very excited to, hopefully we can kick that off as soon as possible and have the next council take and run with that. Obviously, it's a historic landmark, and it has so much potential, and during public comment, Claire Salat is 100% right. A public-private partnership with our plaza, I think, is really the direction we need to go. I spent July in New York City, and Madison Square Park in New York City is an example of that. And whether it's a public-private conservancy or a plaza improvement district, we need to commit more funds to improving our plaza, because the plaza, as Claire and all of us know, is Sonoma's gathering place. It's a point of pride for our residents. It's where our residents go. It's also obviously attracts our visitors and keeps our economy running and humming well. So I am very excited about an RFP process for a plaza master plan, and I think, and again, as Claire said, and as I think we all know, this is alfresco dining, and I could envision, during this ad hoc process with Councilmember Felder, we were always trying to talk about ways we could do temporary extension of sidewalks similar to Cafe La Haye. We were looking for ways to get away from these little buildings, these temporary structures on the plaza, and widen our sidewalks and try to have a alfresco outdoor dining experience on the plaza that sort of treated the plaza, just sort of lightly treated the plaza. And we have worked very hard at that, and as Christina explained, it was a very difficult process. I think was that the heater chart, the flow chart? We saw some flow chart today, which I think was emblematic of this entire process. And so again, we can talk about details about our current interim parklet program, but in general, I'm very supportive of a long-term master plan for the plaza that really incorporates outdoor dining, not just with our restaurants and businesses, but more outdoor dining within the plaza itself. And so, yeah.
That's great.
Well, I think time has come to push the pause button on parklets. We had a real reason to institute the program back at the start of COVID. We have moved on to a totally different direction now, and I think we are sacrificing our historic plaza as a result of it. In serving on the ad hoc committee, we came up with ideas to try to make the parklet program a more attractive feature so that it wouldn't detract from the historic plaza. And it's been a very involved, lengthy, and time-consuming and extended process to try to get there. Back in early May, the ad hoc committee came to the council and said, we got to get rid of these water walls. We got to do some of this thing to clean up these parklets if we're going to keep them around for the summer season. We had an agreement from staff that they would go ahead and remove the water walls by Memorial Day. Well, that became infeasible, and it became June 10th. And then, other things came up, and there was a confusion on what the direction was going to be. And it got pushed out to, maybe we should just try to figure this thing out and go around and meet the various property owners and work it out with them. And now it's, we hope we can get something in place on October 31st, and maybe it'll be good enough to get us into the spring. I think it's time to quit this exercise and to move on to something that is more permanent and more suitable for a historic plaza like we have here in Sonoma to have the successful outcome. So I mean, there are countless examples of things that should have been taken care of and weren't taken care of on this first pass through with the existing parklets. There's example of people encroaching further into the right of way. There's code enforcement things that haven't been addressed. There's a structure that ends at the sidewalk curb, which was deemed to be unsafe, and so then we built an island out into the parking spaces in the street to protect that structure. All of these things are patchwork and unattractive and totally out of character with what we're trying to do in this community. So I don't know where the rest of the council is, but I think the way forward from my perspective is to terminate this existing parklet program. And if it has to go till October 31st because that's some of what we've promised, so be it. But that would be a termination date in my mind, an absolute termination date. And take our time and energy and devote it to a master plan for what we would like to see on the plaza. I don't think we should go out and spend $20 or $30 or $40,000 to have somebody come up with some interim standards and to talk about, well, what's historic on the plaza. I'd rather put that money to good use to develop the master plan. This is something that has outlived its useful purpose, and I think it is prudent for us to terminate this existing plan and to let the next council decide how they want to move forward with a more orderly master plan that is conducive to what we want to have on our historic plaza. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that we terminate the existing parklet program on October 31st, 2022, and move forward with a new council and a master plan at their discretion.
All right, any more than a comments?
Is
Or
it- would it
just
be
a
worth-
motion, or, but this motion,
Mayor Ding, if it's worth, there was a question earlier about the April 1st direction. So I did a little bit of research in the interim. If it's worth at this point responding to that.
yeah. I didn't see, the decision, the
Well,
June
okay,
15th.
May I just add, we have the ability on this council to make any direction and any motion we want on when we want to terminate a program and how we want to extend it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Regardless of previous actions and whatever.
Provided it doesn't violate the general law, but this is not.
But I've made a motion and I'm looking for a second.
Second.
And then I'll assume there'll be continued discussion,
Yeah,
right? Okay,
continued
yeah, okay.
discussion,
I just wanted to
yeah.
make sure.
I'd like to know the answer to the question from Mr. Ruderman, please.
Yeah, I don't think we have the minutes prepared yet, but I looked at my notes and I briefly reviewed the YouTube video. And it was a motion with respect to option A under that, under the staff report, which was to extend the alfresco program for a duration of time. And the time chosen was April 1st, with 12/1 being the date when design guidelines were supposed to be prepared. The October 31st date only related, as far as I understand, to the opening of that one street on the side of the plaza.
Isn't that when the
East.
encroachment permits expire?
Right, so that's what that relate. I'm not sure about that. That was
I believe the encroachment permits expire on October 31st.
so the vote was 3-2 with Councilmember Felder and Agramonte in the negative.
Right. Thank you. So, so here are my comments. I'm certainly in favor of a master plan for the plaza. I mean, I think we need one, and we've heard some good comments from the public and from this council. I know that this has been an arduous and difficult process. One thing I'd like to say is that we've layered a lot of things on businesses. We had this rule and that rule, and then they didn't know if we'd voted on it or if it was something done administratively, and then there was a code enforcement thing, so they had a different timeline. So it's been very difficult for businesses to try and you know, struggle to meet the requirements that they think we've adopted, or at least are trying to adopt. So regardless of what the final outcome is, I would like to say that we have to be consistent in what we're telling them, and that date that you just mentioned, Mr. Ruderman, where all of the requirements would be in place, I think we shouldn't put something else in between that time. Unless, of course, it's something out of our control, like a fire marshal comes down and says, by the way, you got to get rid of this, that, and the other, because that's out of our control. That's not part of us. That's something else. And that's specific to things like code enforcement. And Mr. Berger and I had a conversation about that with one of the parklets. I'm personally, I've seen their use, and I've seen people enjoy them. I've been in other cities, and I've seen people using them, and I know that when they're full and people are enjoying them, we're also reaping the rewards of the taxes that come to the city. I'd hate to send a message that, you know, we don't want to ever have anything like this happen again, because I would like to see something come out of this that's positive, that's rules in place so everyone knows what they are. They can build the thing. I'm totally in favor of charging. You're getting a piece of property. You can't imagine that you're going to get it for free. I think some of that money could go towards some of the transportation systems that we've talked about. But I do think COVID is still here. I think people still enjoy being outside. I think we're in competition with other cities who have parklets that people enjoy, and I'd hate to lose some of that business. But that being said, I do support the overall, you know, plaza, taking a look at that, but would hope that we would be able to do kind of something to keep these businesses afloat while that's being planned. And we should let them know. I mean, once we get the master plan of the plaza, if it says, by the way, you know, that we're going to do something different and these are going to go away, they need to know that. That may happen. And I think that's realistic. But I'd hate to see them go entirely, because I think people enjoy them. People like sitting outside. But I do think we need absolutely to nail down what the requirements are. Absolutely, they need to pay for them. And we have to have a hard and fast date when that happens. And we can't keep changing the date. And we can't keep throwing new things at them every other week saying, oh, and by the way, you got to do this, because that's not fair to anybody. So it's sort of a death by 1,000 cuts is what I'm seeing happening on these things. And I think that's unfortunate, because I think if we'd sort of tighten the reins on this a little bit earlier, we might have had a better outcome. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilmember Sanjo. How about you? You already mentioned.
I guess I'm just asking the city attorney, what are you hearing from us? You know, we all each have an opinion, but which way are we headed?
Well, there
I
would
thought
have
we
to
were
be a
still-
vote for that to know.
I just
Yeah, we want.
Right, there's a
No,
motion.
no, we have the motion, you have a second, and then we keep in the discussion before the vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, everyone got to gonna express themselves completely. You know, I want to contribute to mine 2 cents. And actually, I agree. Right now, there is a lot of uncertainties. The COVID is still is going on and not really finished yet. Everything is uncertainty. So also from the positive side, this gives us a good opportunity to see if anything new we can add it to this historical town. Just like Ron mentioned, and maybe this is a good opportunity, combine and each of the new elements to our history in the town. And also those restaurant owners, and they withdraw this program several months ago, and at that time they complain and on policies and the regulations are too strict and force them to leave this area. And actually, later on, I did a little bit of research and talked with the people, and some of the reason, maybe it's not only for the policy difficult to carry it out, and instead they short of the employees because still during the pandemic. So that if we set up the good policy, good regulations, and also help them fully understand, and they want to come back. So that I had it better, and we spend a little bit more time to wait, and also consider the more factors, and then do something new. Hopefully, it will become the better. It is the value-added stuff to our town. So I want to support something like the Grandmaster and the plan for the future. And
Yeah, and I just want to again say that I do support that Grandmaster plan and including alfresco and outdoor dining as part of permanent parts of the plaza through extend larger sidewalks, and obviously that will be discussed during the RFP process as we discuss what that master plan project is going to look like. When it comes to these parklets, it's always been a tough one for me in the sense that I love outdoor dining and I like the energy and the European style. I've said that often, outdoor dining, and but I just don't. I've just never liked the way they look, and I've just always been trying to create some sort of balance here. And you remember during our ad hoc meetings, I would always talk about sidewalk extensions like Cafe La Haye. I thought that would be a good sort of happy medium. And as time goes on, there is just more and more obstacles, and I just don't know. With the red, as Councilmember Lowe was talking about, I think that is important, and tents. I mean, they're just. It's hard to describe how complicated this process has been. Obviously earlier this year we, wanted to sort of strike a balance. We wanted to improve our current parklets, and we sent out a letter. And obviously there was some miscommunication, and things got and 2 parklets were ripped out. Upon further review, the letter was 100% accurate. Perhaps it could have been more, delivered in a better way. But, there are state laws regarding fire hazards. There are just issues here. And so it's just been this balance. And as time goes on and we're looking at this, this is a, first of all, the ad hoc, we sort of talked about this generally, although we never really went through it like this. And the tent recommendation, by the way, was not the ad hoc recommendation, but this is just not, I just don't know if the city council should be spending time on this, And I think what we heard from staff, at least at our last ad hoc meeting, and I think you saw that in some of the sort of potential recommendations, was that this takes a tremendous amount of staff time, and it takes a tremendous amount of engagement, and no one are parklet experts because they didn't exist 3 years ago. And we're trying to get this right, and every minute we spend further on parklets at this point, we're not spending time on our parks or our affordable housing or really anything else. And it's one of those issues that takes in planning and public works and city manager's office, and it's just sort of an all hands on deck for ultimately, we're down a few parklets. I have a feeling we'll be down even more parklets after the higher rent, and we're going to have to, just based on state laws, require some of these parklets without platforms to invest in terms of ADA. I mean, it's going to be an expensive proposition. And so at this point, I would be more than happy to further discuss this and go through this if you want. But, I think there could be merit to sort of looking toward the future with a master plan and have something to aspire to. And just like Broadway, I still think that Broadway, you didn't think I was never going to bring up Broadway again. But, the fact that it's all done now, I feel like we've lost momentum to try to really create that sort of entry, that red carpet into Sonoma. And I worry the more we invest in these parklets, we are going to lose the sort of, the inspiration to really. I think there's something to be said about if there is a period of time they're not there, we're going to want to somehow bring them back in the right way, and maybe we do that through a master plan process. And so that's sort of what I'm thinking about right now. I don't know if anyone else has any further ideas on that, but
More, I'm
Yes,
sorry, one more.
Casey.
So I just wanted to clear something up. Sue Casey, City Manager Casey, with respect to First Street East, I think that's already resolved. Is that right?
That is resolved. That the vote was that it would be terminated on October 31st. They had until November 30th to remove the parklets, and that was agreed. I talked to the safety, both Chief Aker and Chief Rodriguez, and they were in agreement with that.
Thank you. So the other thing, with respect to our mayor, one of the things that you brought up, and it's just one of those things that gets set aside, and I understand the grants. This might be a wonderful entree into looking for grants for something like this, or to enhance our historic plaza. I think that especially with issues of transportation and cars, getting them off the plaza possibly, all of those things are involved in that. So it opens up a whole new horizon to all of us. So I look forward to even, discussing that even now or when I'm not on the council. And so I'm just, I just think I'm just pleased with that. And I'm concerned about code enforcement because I think for me it's always been sort of like, I don't know, hands off, or it doesn't, I don't know. I've never been impressed, unfortunately. I know there's some hard work that probably goes in it, but I've been very disappointed. As I said earlier, my only job is to serve the public. That's it. It seems so simple, and but somehow it's been made difficult. Thank you.
All right, yes.
I'm hearing where this is going. I'm good like that. A couple things that came up, as a result of this parklet discussion, obviously the parking situation, which we're going to, I hope that doesn't go away. We still need to continue the parking areas and so forth, because we won't solve them by getting rid of the parklets. We're still, believe me, before the parklets were there, people complained about parking.
Oh, yeah.
And they will complain about it forever. So, but anyway, so that being said, I don't want to lose track of having some sort of transportation system to the plaza, because I think that that still is of benefit, and that is something that sort of came up as a result of some of these conversations. I don't want to lose that. And then I know there was at least one public comment regarding getting rid of cars entirely, which I know, a surefire way to fill my email would be for me to say what a great idea that is. But I will say that some effort needs to be made to encourage people to use alternate forms of transportation to come to the plaza. We do have bike lanes. We should have more places to store one's bikes. And I don't want to lose. I'm afraid that in the discussion of the parklet, that many of these other things that have come up as subsidiary issues, we're going to lose them. So I'd like to say all those things on the record. Hopefully, now that I know it's a YouTube recording, they can be saved for posterity, and people who are utterly bored can watch this and send me those nasty emails, or nice ones, always welcome. And then, I think we do need to talk about if there is a parklet in the future, I still wouldn't want to lose that's in the master plan, because I think people really enjoy them, and I think it will be a sad day when they go. But perhaps a better day will be, in front of us. So anyway, I just don't want to lose some of those other things that came up as a result that were kind of issues, and that's that.
All right, yeah, more
Yeah,
comments.
I just think that, we don't want to lose the downtown park, talking about parking and the master plan, and we've sort of had our eye on the ball because we've just been talking about parklets this year, and obviously Councilman Felder and I think parklets have been important, as everyone has said. They serve the purpose. Like, we've done a great job with them. We needed them. And I think, Councilman Felder and myself and Councilman Angramani, we're not going to be here much longer. And I think the greatest gift we can give you guys is to not talk about parklets anymore and just consume your next, and just focus on incorporating parklets in that next master plan. I don't want to, and when I say parklet, I'm talking about like alfresco, as Claire said, like outdoor
Yes.
dining, like not little like buildings everywhere, but just like wide sidewalks with there's tables on the sidewalk and all that. And I think that, I think the town could get behind that. And I think a public-private partner, I think it's actually there's so much potential for our plaza, and especially over the next 5 years, and I'm very excited to see how this master plan comes out. So
That's great. Yeah, thank you for your inputs. Any?
I'm finished.
If there are no more, I would like to have the roll call, please. Right. I would like to-
Can you
Oh,
please
no.
restate the motion?
Rest
Thank
of the-
you.
Yeah, please. And Felder, Councilmember Felder.
Well, the motion that I made was to terminate the existing parklet program on October 31st. And I've seen a couple of dates on when it actually removal would be required, but the most recent date is November 30th. So terminate the parklets on October 31st and remove them by November 30th. And then spend time and energy on developing a master plan.
So should I amend my second to agree with what?
Second? All right.
Um,
Any more?
would you be open to extending it a little further?
No.
But I think it's okay. If they cannot get it approved, we can, have another motion, see if that's possible. If we have the new time frame.
Well, meaning I was thinking
May
that,
I respond a little bit?
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned this thing, we keep spinning our wheels on talking about parklets and extending this and doing that and whatever. Let's put this one behind us and put our energy in doing it the right way. And anytime we consume the rest of this year with this council trying to figure out how we extend the program for a little longer, it just takes time from other things. I would rather be done with this one and move on to something better.
I don't dispute that. I'm just, I was trying to give the businesses as much time, like advance notice, I guess. And so October 31st would be 2.5 months, a little less than that. And so I was just, that was my only
Want to see?
I agree with Bob. You know what? This could go on. I could be in a wheelchair or something by the time we finish talking about it. I'm done, really. This is one of the big issues for me. And I think that we acted valiantly in the beginning to help the businesses the way that I believe we should have. But really, it's more than businesses. I live here, and I'm jumping on curbs and watching, the way I drive, trying to move around. Is it B&V and you're in head-on traffic to go up East Spain because of that, that parklet there. I just want to have some peace back, and so I'm still, I can't, I just can't do that. Maybe there's something that has to be done. Maybe they can't hire someone to take the structure down until a certain date. But I'm not willing to change.
Okay.
I guess my only concern, because I support you, the both of you, but no one from I was thinking if we gave the business community a little more lead time, not necessarily changing it, and again, they don't. I don't know if they know that was on the table tonight. I guess that's the only thing I'm saying. That no one is here from the business community. It appears that might not change anybody's mind.
Yes.
I'm just saying that.
I suggest, I prefer that, we vote for this motion. If we can get proof, that's fine. If not, and then we discuss, and also the based on original out and another than three choices of, three choices. We see maybe we can make the changes for this kind of deadline or whatever. So otherwise, we cannot move forward. Yeah, I want you to move forward first.
Well, I call for the question. Just vote.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe.
No.
Vice Mayor Barnett.
No to this date.
Mayor Ding.
No.
Thank you. The motion fails 2-3.
So
All right.
I was just going to suggest, since Councilman Felder said he wanted it through, that they're removed by November 30th? Is that?
That's what it says.
Well, you said that they would stop at October 31st? Yes. Well, I was just thinking that they could go through November and then stop it, and then it was just a month. I just thought 3 months seems like.
It'll be another 3 week or 4 weeks to pull it out, and then it'll be January, and then it'll be April.
Well, it seems like it's extending that by a month. I just thought 3 months seems like a good window for businesses to prepare.
And the required and the
In order to move this forward, I will make a motion to bring it till November 30th. Is
Where
that what you're saying?
operations end.
Done. Everything's gone. It looks
No.
like my old hometown.
No. Operations end November 30th, and then they have a few weeks to, or I don't know how long it takes to remove them.
That's that's a month more than October 31st, sort of, right?
Yes, it's the same thing, just a month. So, again,
Excuse me.
Yes.
What did
Okay.
I just thought 3.5 months might be better lead time for businesses.
And what does that bring us up to?
Well, November 30th, it would end operations, but then they would have, some time to remove them physically.
Through the mayor, if I may, I do think staff might have some
Yes, I would like
ideas
to.
about how long it takes
Yes,
to disassemble.
Christina, from your professional perspective, any suggestion? Because I know that you have the total options, 4 options.
Well, I'm not interested in the other 3. I'm just interested in what we're going to do with 4 at this point.
Whoever was here was really tall last time. So the hard thing with these parklets is each business is in a different circumstance. So Mary's Pizza, for example, is a large franchise, so they have their own in-house construction staff. Some of these other businesses are working with vendors. So the tents, many of them are with Bright, rentals, I think the lead time for taking down those tents is several months to even just get on a schedule. Everyone's going to be in different circumstances. Some parklets are, just the water walls and some planters. Those could go away very quickly. Some of the other ones will take a lot more time, and people will need to find consultants and get scopes of work, and that can take a couple months.
So now how many the big restaurants we got affected?
So
This is the Mary's, and also from the first street to the east, there was a plaza.
We have
Bris-
12.
Bristol,
We
yeah.
have 12 parklets.
Parklet.
I would just echo Vice Mayor Barnett's concern that I think this issue timing was not noticed. I don't think the businesses were aware this was going to be on the table this evening.
And why is that? Why didn't we contact them?
Well, we're following up on the meeting from June. The meeting in June, we had direction to extend the program till April.
So I mean, that does counsel for, if the council wants to terminate the program, it may make sense to put this on the next agenda so that we can provide those businesses with the information. Just because the agenda itself really was about what the design guidelines.
Is that a suggestion for a compromise? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm suggesting that would aid in providing notice to the affected businesses.
Before
Well, I
that,
think that seems fair.
all right. And
Is it-
before we do
is
that,
this- I'm sorry.
sorry. I think Mark, you have some information share with us. Yeah, could you please?
Thank you, Mayor. It's not necessarily information. It's, I think, just that the understanding, when you read the agenda, I think that the reason there's nobody from the business community here besides myself is because this agenda says, this was extended through April 1st, 2023. We're just doing some little, minor changes on the interim upgrade. So I think there's the expectation from the business community is we'll learn about what little steps we need to take in between now and these dates. I don't think anybody thinks that we're talking about discontinuing the program 6 months before we decided to do so on June 15th or whatever that date was. So I think that the idea of just opening it, involving the community, I think there's a lot of residents of Sonoma, in addition to businesses, who feel pretty strongly about these that would want to know about that. But I think that that's the understanding in the community is not that changing the date drastically was on the table. That was not my understanding. I didn't think that that was even being considered tonight. So, so people were obviously notified. They had access to this, but I think this leads somebody to believe that we're discussing the minor changes that were shown in the staff report.
So
Yeah,
I
thank
just
you.
offer something, but there are two people who support this. I don't know where other council members are, that's none of my business, but I think people who have businesses that have these parklets, it's like a notice. I'm tired. Bob Felton, Mr. Councilmember Felder, I'm tired of this. I'm aging in this place that we don't do things. So I think the business should know it. And if I'm on YouTube, this is exciting. I don't know, but people need to understand. I personally am tired of it.
Is this something where we pass it twice? It's not an ordinance where you have a second reading? Like meaning a decision tonight? I mean, I know the answer. I don't know why I asked that question.
Yeah.
But, okay.
But I do think that the point that was made regarding what's in the agenda is a relevant consideration for the council.
Did you say relevant or irrelevant?
Relevant,
Oh.
very relevant.
Relevant, yeah, agenda.
Because the agenda, the whole point of the agenda is to tell people, is this something that really matters to me that I'm going to drive down to the council chambers or call it on Zoom? And the option of discontinuing the parklet program, which was just decided on June 1st, and doing that within the next 3 months was not on the agenda.
Well, that seems, I believe that what you're saying and Mark
Yeah.
has offered seems very fair. As I said, my job is simple. It's to serve the public, and I think the points that are making are well taken. So I still believe what I believe, but I think that there should be more ample time for them to be able to respond in some way. Thanks.
I mean, what's on the agenda is staff's request for direction with respect to particulars of the.
But our next meeting is almost a month from now, and then we're going to get to the point, well, does that give them enough time then to react after the next meeting? And we're going to push it, we're going to kick the can down the road again, and we're going to be to April, and we're going to be to June, and it's going to be, this just, it's like most of the other things that happen around here. We never get the decision and make it and finalize it.
Yes. David, based on our each council members' comments, you have some idea in your mind. Could you please use your own wisdom and how to be compliant, and also consider with our business owners. They read these kind of agenda. They are expecting or no any motion.
I think the council has two options right now.
Okay.
If the first option, if it wants to consider ending the parklet program at some point later than October 31st, it should direct staff to bring that back on a subsequent agenda. If the other option that the council has is to consider the questions that staff raises, particularly with respect to the interim improvements as they move forward in the direction that was provided by this council in June of preparing design standards by December 1st. So basically the two options are help out staff with some direction that they've requested with their spreadsheet, or if you really are considering ending it, then that should just be on the next agenda so that we can provide the notice that really is necessary under the Brown Act.
So do we assign, do we put that on the agenda, like with a motion tonight, with like a date, so they know what they're coming for, or?
That would be helpful. It's not necessary, but that would probably be helpful.
What I'm hearing is to direct staff to come back with a fifth option regarding the parklet program, and that is possible conclusion of the parklet program as we move into a full analysis of the master plan. Because I made some comments regarding the nuts and bolts of things, and most people were discussing really not that, but the master plan, and if we have that, should we just end this? So what I'm hearing is that is, and I'm hearing it, I'm not necessarily speaking in favor of it, but what I'm hearing is that there really is a fifth option, and that is to do a full plan and and have a cessation of the current program while we go into that full plan.
When 2023, 2024?
Well, we're asking staff to bring that back as part of an option for us, and then we could have dates assigned to it that would be working. Anyway, that's just a suggestion in terms of bringing something back, but I do agree with the comments being made that business community was not sufficiently noticed, and they would want to comment about this.
Basically, I agree with Council Member Lowe, and because this is a big issue. Big issue, I always prefer and not make decision in a short period of time. Yeah, we wait and let us thinking, and if the little thing, the small thing, yeah, maybe we can make a decision right away, but it will, in some way, will shape the future of the Sonoma in some way. So I would agree, the next council meeting, or 1 month later, or then skip the next one, and then we do more research, I'm afraid today I didn't see any restaurant owners. Basically, that is not normal. And we should ask me if you're really not interested or you're scared to those kind of the policy. That is, and they told me that before. So
I agree. Yeah. I mean, let's make this decision with proper notice. And if we have any time, or I don't know if anyone's interested, but if you'd like to go over this now, maybe we could do it now, and then restaurant owners could come to the next meeting and say that was a good idea or not, or maybe it doesn't
I think they'd want to hear that as well. I mean, it seems to me it all goes together.
So we don't do this now.
No,
we
I'll
wait
kill
until-
myself if we have.
Okay.
And then there's that. Also, not good. But, you know, you
Do we have
know,
one of
I
those
thi-
AEDs around here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, you know, I think that honestly, after you make the decision as to which way you want to go, then I think you can get more into the weeds of things. It seems silly to get into the weeds of something that there's a majority to say we don't want to do anymore. I mean, honestly, you know, let's not fool ourselves. That's crazy making.
Yeah, okay.
But at some time, this issue, we need either fish or cut bait. That's it. It has to be over with. It just has to be over. It must be horrible for businesses to wonder what's going on, or the maintenance, or how much this is gonna cost, the fees and things. So I think we need to come to a decision some way or the other.
actually, you know, not only in the affected in the restaurant owners, but in the whole, you know, the structure and the plaza in the future. you know.
Absolutely. I
Restaurant-
hate walking down this street. Other people do too.
Whatever, I think.
So are we continuing this item,
Do you want to make a motion
to continue the item?
and add?
And I was
yes.
just, or maybe Councilmember Lowe could, I just liked however she, yeah.
Continue this item with adding option 5, which is possible discontinuation of the program.
On what date?
Well, that's that will be taken up at the meeting. That'd be part. Well, unless the staff would like to, when they give us our staff report, I would imagine they will have some dates in there for us to look at as part, just like we had this to look at. And I think they would have prepared that had they known that was one of the options we wanted to look at. And of course, at least at that point, if Councilmember Felder, if you're not happy with the dates that they propose and we don't get a motion to support them, you can substitute another date, you know, but at least then it's out there.
So we'll have date flexibility at that meeting, David? D5? Will we have date flexibility? Like staff could offer a date, but we'll be able to.
Yeah.
I
It'll
think
be,
that's reasonable.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I concerned that you are putting a closure date or, you know, that means, you know, you already made a decision today, but I still want to see, you know, any opening, any opportunities, you know, that is. If you just see, oh, yeah, today, you know, we didn't, you know, choose a good date, next time we choose good day.
Well, I have a motion on the floor to continue this item, adding a 5th option, which is possible discontinuation of the program.
Second.
Let's get this baby moving.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agarmati,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
No.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want to see some of the closure or something like that.
No, it's an option. It's not.
Oh, okay.
It just like it was an option
Yeah.
tonight, but it wasn't noticed. So I'm just putting that as one of the options so that people will not be surprised and they'll know to come here and argue for it or against it.
Yeah, please use it a possible option.
And it's
as
option
closure.
5, which
All right.
means there's also options 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are not to discontinue the program. So it is simply adding an option so that people know that that's a possibility and can come talk about it.
And can,
Yeah, it's, if like this way, I change my vote
Can I-
from the no to yes.
well, can I amend,
Oh, yeah, you can, you want to
well,
amend?
then I'm just gonna talk anyway, so if you can include it in the staff report, I appreciate it. Option 5 should include,
We have one more vote, I think, for the roll call.
oh no, he voted.
That was the last one? Okay.
Yeah. Option 5 needs to also, if people decide to go with option 5, I also want it to include the master plan. I don't want it to
Right.
be
Yes, master
4
plan,
or 5.
yes.
I want it to be 4
Yes.
and 5, or just 5
Yeah.
include the master plan.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
The motion carried 4-1.
Right. And I don't think that, I think you could, we could probably choose several things from the list. I don't, yeah.
Can you then read the motion again?
But it's, at least it's just noticing it, that's out there, that's all it is.
You, Dave? Yeah,
The
read
way I
motion.
had it was that the motion was to continue this item, but add a 5th option for possible discontinuation of the Parklet program.
And included master.
The master plan is
Plan.
included
It's
as
already
item
on
4
there. Oh, it's
already, and I
okay.
believe staff's report does say that that one can go in conjunction with any of the other options.
Okay, all right.
That's good.
All right.
That was
Move-
fun.
Yeah. Motion proved 4-1. Let's move forward to. That is an easy one. 7, council member reports and the comments. 7.1, comments, reports. Council members are appointed to various boards and the committees and the local, countrywide, and the region. Any in the reports?
So I do have a report for zero, 2 things for zero waste. One, of course, I looked at a site for a CRV recycling site. I won't reveal it, but there are others. I think there's one more. I visited the site with a person from the zero waste staff. And the other thing I'd like to call out, a shout out, is that what people call it? They are negotiating at Safeway when you bring in bottles and cans. They're not doing things legally. They're just saying, what do you think? What do you think we should give you? What happened to the recycling plan in the state of California? You start with Cal Recycle, who are liars about everything. They have so much money they could buy the state of Pennsylvania or something. But something's going wrong. And, people really depend on recycling to supplement their incomes. So I'm pretty angry with Safeway. Other Safeways are being sued, and possibly maybe someone here, maybe my last name, could sue Safeway because they're negotiating these things, and they're supposed to actually have a rate of what they give you. So I don't know. I'm pretty disappointed. And that's my report.
That's great. Any, hi.
Sonoma Clean Power met on August 4th, and they were awarded a $3 million plus contract for a flex market energy efficiency program over 3 years, which would provide peak load reduction benefits, avoid greenhouse gas emissions, and utility bill savings. And they also selected Auto Grid Systems to administer a grid savvy rewards program, which supports grid reliability and allows them to shut down fossil fuel power plants during peak events.
Thank you. Yeah, that is all. Okay, let's move to agenda number 8, city manager comments and announcements.
Just one announcement, we are, just a reminder that we're having the 90-day agenda setting meeting on Friday at, it will be at the Crew Event Center, starts at 8 a.m.
Is that a public meeting?
Yes, it is.
Has it been noticed?
It will be tomorrow. It's a special meeting, so it's
Okay.
Also, one other announcement that the the application period for the PROS and the Climate Action Commission was extended because you didn't have enough applications to fill the, so we have extended that to, I've extended it to August 26th.
Okay. August 26th. Okay. Great. Any more announcement? If none, let me move to agenda number 9, city attorney comments.
I have no report tonight, Mayor Dino.
Thank you, Dave. Agenda number 10, meeting is adjourned.